If you're new to selling on Etsy and wondering, is it even still possible in 2023, then you are going to love this interview that I did with the Etsy seller, Mandy. She started in 2022 and in less than 10 months was able to sell over $100,000, starting and scaling her first ever Etsy and print-on-demand store. So I can't wait to share her story with you. She shares tons of great tips of exactly how she got there and how you can too. So make sure to stay tuned all the way until the end, and let's say hello to Mandy. Hello, Mandy. Thank you so much for being here with me today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, of course. I've been following your journey a little bit on your channel after seeing your Business Insider article that you had. So super excited to have you on. I think your story is really, really inspiring, especially for anybody that is just getting started on print on demand and is wondering, is this possible still in 2022 and 2023 to be successful? So I'm so excited to share your story with my channel here. I'd love to start out by just hearing a little bit more about your story, because I know this isn't actually your first time selling on Etsy.
I'm kind of self-dubbed myself as a serial entrepreneur. I've always needed a bit of a creative outlet. So my schooling and career was always in human resources, and I have a little bit of a technical background with IT project management, but I actually have a handmade business. It's handmade natural skincare that I started on Etsy in 2017, just as truly a side hobby. CoverGirl stopped making my favorite lip balm and the rest is history, right? But, and so I've done that for many years and continue to do that. I actually sell on Shopify primarily with that now. A couple of years ago, I really wanted to start thinking about a creative outlet. So I ended up with my handmade business being able to leave my human resources world. I was an HR director for several years. With the pandemic, like so many people, I was just completely burnt out. Thankfully, I was one of the fortunate ones that has something to fall back on and could really continue to grow my handmade business. So really fast forwarding to 2022, I, again, am someone who needs that creative outlet. While I was doing my handmade stuff, full time during the day, really needed something for in the evenings or just during downtime when I wasn't necessarily feeling like production or fulfillment of all the other stuff, where I could have that creative energy go someplace and be productive with that. And really landed on a few different things, but one of them was this world of print on demand. I thought that was the coolest thing. And again, being someone who comes from a handmade, fulfilling everything myself background for so many years, I think the notion of being able to make all these products with my designs and creation, putting them on a variety of different products and having somebody else really do the heavy lifting, in my opinion, print on demand is the coolest thing since sliced bread, right? Because I'm able to run my handmade business and do print on demand and have this whole other side business right alongside it without feeling like I'm losing out on either. So that's what I set out to do in roughly May of last year, 2022, and was just on this journey of let's see where this can go.
Yeah, I love that. I feel super similar. Obviously, I'm very obsessed with print on demand and how it's helped me change my own life. I was able to quit my job in a little less than a year and a half selling print on demand. So it absolutely is such a cool avenue because, I have a life and a family and I had a job for a lot of that time and I was able to build it on the side in the time that I had. So I do think it is an amazing opportunity. Obviously, that's why we're here. And I think that's again why I really love your story, because you got started in 2022. That's not that long ago. I mean, you're coming up, you've been selling print on demand for just about a year now then. And so in that time, I saw from one of your YouTube videos, you've been able to sell over $100,000 on Etsy. Congratulations to you. But what I want to break down in this interview is kind of figure out maybe some of those things that helped you get going. That way the people that are watching can kind of replicate some of that and figure out how to get to their first 100K as well. So why don't you walk us through a little bit of the beginning of your print on demand process and some of the things that you learned as you got started? Like how long did it take you, say, to get your first sale?
Yeah, I want to say my first sale was probably a couple weeks after after I started. So when I got into this, I was very late to this whole TikTok world, but by the time I got to it, I was seeing all these videos of, selling print on demand and making all this money. And so part of me was like, number one, I'm like an insider closeted competitive person. So I'm like, well, if they can do it, I wonder if I can do it. Surely I could figure this out. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go all in on this. I want to see if I, give this the best job that I can, what can I make of this? And doing a lot of what they said not to do, which was flooding my shop with a lot of listings, right? And I tried to do that very quickly. And again, thinking of the fact that I'm also running this handmade business, I had to do it in what I call pockets of time. So I only had, evenings sometimes, little bits during the week when I could work on it. So I had to really maximize how efficient I was being with getting all these listings up there. So I knew I needed to do my research. So I spent some time on eRank. I used Marmalade for a while because these were all tools that I was familiar with when I was growing my handmade business early on in the Etsy days. And so, researching the different target audiences and niches that seemed like they would be interesting and could get some more traction. And then I was working on design. So I always created probably 98% of my designs in Canva. Again, it was a tool that I was already familiar with. So it was, the barrier to entry was relatively low in that regard because I could just jump right into it. The way I worked my designs was I'd have this list of niches or keywords that I thought about. A lot of them were around occupations or, veterinary technicians, trying to think super specific. And then I would create a bunch of designs in Canva and really create them in kind of a batching method. And so Canva made that really easy. I could create, kind of one basic design, or typically I would make, 9, 10, or 11 rough design elements. And then I would go into each of those and I could change just one part of it for each of the different niches that I was working within. So in fairly short amount of time, I could very easily knock out 10, 12 designs and just start cranking out those listings. I will say not all of my early designs were as specific as I probably should have gone. I think there really is a lot of truth and validity to working within more specific niches because typically those were the ones that sold better for me fastest, whereas a lot of the really general stuff, coming into it in May, really wanting to ramp up for, that wonderful Q4 time that I had heard everybody talk about, starting to add in some Halloween and Christmas designs. And I sold a handful of those, especially once it got closer, but by and large, really focusing on those niches and trying to think about designs that would resonate with specific audiences was what really helped me grow a lot faster. And again, part of it was really about volume. Etsy, especially in more recent years, because it has grown so significantly, both in terms of number of shops, number of sellers that are out there, as well as number of customers. But it's much more of a volume game than it used to be. So in 2017, when I first started, I think my early shop had maybe 30 listings, and I could get pretty decent sales with that, even in a fairly saturated market, even at the time, of skincare. Nowadays, can you be successful with just a handful of listings? Maybe. Probably going to be a lot slower than most people really like or are expecting when they go into this mindset, to really start seeing that traction. Did every design sell? No. I think the normal statistic is, I think it's 20% of your listings are what's going to sell. And so the only way to really get there and to really start to, in my mind, see what's going to work is to have that volume. And so that was really the mindset that I went into it with, is I don't necessarily know what's going to resonate the most or the best with different audiences, or which niche audience is going to do the best in this shop. So I went across a bunch of different niches, whether it was occupations, hobbies, travel destinations, really trying out all of it so that I stood the best chance, again, in my mind, of really hitting that volume and having something out there that would resonate. And then from there, I could use that data, right? I could easily go in and look at my stats in Etsy, look at all of my listings with the stat view turn on and see, gosh, this listing or this handful of listings in this niche, they're not getting any views or visits or anything. But this niche really seems like they're starting to pop up in searches because I can see I'm getting views and visits. I can see I'm starting to get favorites. So that one has potential. I'll add more so that I can really fill out a full section related to that niche or niches. And so it was really about getting that volume out there to get data to help me make a better decision. If you're wanting to do it quickly, if you want to do it slower and more organically and don't mind not getting as many views early on, that's fine. But I think you and I both know that most people who are wanting to start on this and really have a successful business, they're wanting to see traction right away. We live in an age where there's no patience. And so we want to see the return and result on all of our work. And so, like I said, in my mind, the fastest way to do that was to just start pushing it out there to see what would work.
Yeah, no, I think that's really one of the biggest reasons why I wanted to reach out to you, because it seems like you built your business in a really similar way as me. Having a general store where you sell lots of different niches, I think is the best fit for Etsy, because everyone comes to Etsy usually with something in mind. It's a marketplace, right? They come, they type in gift for mom or funny mom shirt or something specific. They look through those search results, they pick one and they buy it. Very rarely are people actually coming to your Etsy store and shopping just specifically with you. They have to find you within one of those search results first. So the more searches you can show up in on Etsy, the more chances you have to catch those customers. Each individual niche only has so many people that are going to be shopping for it. And so if you can show up in lots of different ones, I know I've sold in probably 1,000 different niches. Right. It's hard to even know over the years. So I think it sounds really, really similar. The scalable designs, you come up with one nice design template, you scale it out into lots of different versions. I know I just did a video 2 weeks ago. I'll link it down in the description, how to make 100 designs in less than an hour using Canva Bulk Create. I don't know if you use the Bulk Create feature, but that is like the biggest time saver of my whole life, having them just make all the designs for me in 2 seconds. And so I think it really is that way too. If you look at the top shops on Etsy, most of them do have 500, 1,000, 2,000 listings, if not 5,000 listings.
Yep, there's some huge shops out there. And if you a lot of times look at those shops, one of the things I like to do on eRank is to look at some of those really big shops. And like you said, 9 times out of 10, these are huge shops and they're quite often selling across a variety of different niches. And it's not even necessarily complicated designs. Like you've said recently, like a lot of people say, simple does still sell. You just have to know the right market, and understand your niche you're selling in to make it work. But you can definitely crank out a lot, and it's going to, in return, give you lots of data. I feel like that's a huge question that I get all the time, even just with, do I start an Etsy? Do I start a Shopify? Where do I go? And, like you said, my first reaction is always going to be Etsy because it's a marketplace. You can still build a brand. A lot of people I want to build a brand. That's great, but start and learn and understand, and validate what you want to sell using a marketplace like Etsy. And then if you want to build on a Shopify later and really invest a lot of time and a different learning curve, you can do that down the road with a Shopify or a Wix or whatever.
With already
having that
designs.
Right, exactly. And then there's different ways of moving that traffic off of your Etsy as well and driving that. But being able to utilize that marketplace on Etsy and the organic traffic that Etsy is bringing in, love it or hate it, I'm happy to pay those fees for all of the traffic that Etsy is driving, to my shop with the work that I put into it, because it's definitely possible once you figure out how to work that engine of sorts.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think there's going to be a burning question a lot of my subscribers are going to have. And has most of your sales come organically, or do you utilize things like Etsy ads in your business to help it get going?
In the beginning, and especially around the holidays, I did have Etsy turned on, and I use it again for a very specific purpose. In the beginning when I was growing, I wanted to, again, get data. And in my experience and in, the way I was thinking about it, to do that, data comes from views, visits, favorites, and seeing what what is going to resonate and then convert into sales. And to really exponentially increase that, you turn on ads. That's more or less what they're there for, is to boost it, to see what's going to start converting. And so in the beginning, when my shop was brand new, I was turning on ads to really increase that view and see what would then convert into sales or wouldn't. And then I would play around with turning on and off those keywords and really turning off listings as I saw that, yeah, that one's really just not going to convert. And then, over time, I would turn the ads off on listings that weren't the highest converters or maybe had more competition in the marketplace. So maybe it's getting a lot of views. Maybe there's another competitor out there that, could compete better on price, for example. So my particular listings, for whatever reason, weren't converting into sales. And so then I would really play around with that. And so now I really use it more so for newer listings, for again, the same reason, is to boost that initial view on Etsy, to get some additional traffic there so that I can see faster if a listing is going to do well, or if it's just maybe one that's going to need more of a long game and could sell down the road. So I'm not going to just get rid of the listing, but I might change some things over time, or just, let it sit there for a while and really focus more of the attention on listings that are converting and niches that are converting. So I use it in a couple different ways. And even in the newer shop was an interesting experiment. So I started an additional shop when I started my YouTube channel because I really wanted to be able to show, a shop name. If people want to go out and check it out, cool. It's not going to mess with any conversion on my primary shop or anything like that. I started a very niche specific shop, and I repeated the same approach that I started with my main shop last year, just to kind of see if it was a repeatable process. And it was interesting. So I don't spend as much time there now, obviously adding new things. It was more so just get it started and let it hang out. But in the beginning, I did exactly that. I got to 100 sales relatively quickly, and about 60% of those came from ads. Those are sales and visits and views that I probably would not have had I not had those turn on. And then it again, once you get that momentum with Etsy, it will generally keep going. So even if I turn off ads, which I have in that shop, I still now organically, because my shop got the boost from having more orders right away, from having good reviews right away, and really seeing that traction faster, it essentially tells, the Etsy ranking system, this is, a legitimate shop. And so you start to get that organic Etsy ranking faster as a whole shop. And so now I can turn off ads on that because, again, I'm not necessarily wanting to dump a lot of money into that particular shop. But, the point is it grew relatively quickly when I just started that a few months ago as part of my YouTube channel, to have that available to show and, do trainings and things like that right on screen. So it was an interesting experiment, and to then specifically track even the ads numbers for sales of using that method. And again, there's very much a love-hate relationship with Etsy ads. And so I know that not everyone loves that, and that's okay. You still can, I think, with the volume, still get that organic traffic. But like I said, I used it for a very specific reason, to have that data and to really fast track that momentum, knowing and feeling confident in the designs and the SEO that I was putting into it. I think that's really the big disclaimer and the big caveat with ads is, making sure that you are putting out good designs, that your SEO is at least to the best of your ability, that you've done research on keywords, and that you're not just dumping a bunch of Etsy ad dollars into really general designs. Probably aren't going to be able to compete even with ads with some of those big shops that are out there.
Yeah, no, that's super inspiring. So I guess just a quick question then. So comparing you starting a new print-on-demand store last year to you starting a new one this year to use as a test, how long did it take you to get each of those two shops to that 100 sales? How long did it take you, say, your first shop last year? I think that's where a lot of people are, is that first 100 feels really hard, feels like it takes a really long time. And then you start to really gain that momentum because now you've got some sales and some reviews. So how long did it take you to do that each time?
I want to say I hit 100 sales in last year, probably closer to around July, I think, end of May. So maybe that kind of 45-ish day window to really start seeing that. Again, I feel like I got a lot of traction there pretty quickly. And then with my current shop, I want to say it's right around 160 right now. And I started in the middle of January, so maybe closer to March, I want to say. It felt surprisingly quickly, but again, I think that had a lot to do with just volume and being very specific and strategic with how I use ad dollars to really kind of fast track that. Because like I said, my approach and mindset was all about fast tracking. I guess that's not what everyone prefers, but that's where I was able to really find success faster, in doing more or less the same activities as anyone else would, but to really just hone in on a couple specific strategies within that.
No, I think that's super valuable. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing all of your valuable tips. I feel like you gave us even more than we bargained for, probably, with exactly what that process looked like, what your mindset was. So I really appreciate you coming on, and I will go ahead and link Mandy's YouTube channel because she has a lot of great tutorials on her own channel. I'll link that down in the description. So make sure everybody to go subscribe to Mandy to follow her journey as she still keeps growing this second print-on-demand store along with her handmade business. And you can, follow her on her channel and ask her any questions that you might have for her in the comments of this video or in the comments of her videos. And it was so nice to meet you, Mandy. I really appreciate you being here. This was so much fun to get to know you and your story a little bit more.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
I really hope that you enjoyed this interview today with Mandy, and you'll go over and give her some love on her channel. And if you are just getting started and wondering what those first steps are, I will link down below my free 9-module mini course that will teach you how to get started with Etsy and print on demand, step by step, from getting set up for the first time with Etsy and Printify all the way through creating and listing your very first design. So as always, thank you so much for staying all the way until the end, and I'll see you in the next one.